Boss Rush Video Game Book Club is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our family of podcasts, head on over to patreon.com/bossrushmedia to see which tier is right for you. Thanks for your continued support. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Boss Rush Video Game Book Club, our once-a-month show where we discuss and review and spoil the crap out of video games. I'm one of your hosts, Corey Deargan. Alongside me, as always, is the mad pharmacist herself, Stephanie Klimov.
Let's get our furry on.
Oh, geez. Yikes. They're all children, Stephanie. Okay.
Just because I said furry doesn't mean I'm, gosh, you have to make everything dirty, Corey.
Also joining us is PK Power, Pat Klein.
People thought that Disney was trying to indoctrinate our kids in weird sexual behavior.
I know. Robin Hood, man. You know?
That's a very handsome
Maid
Robin.
Marian was she was fine.
Maid Marian was the original Lola Bunny. Okay. All right. Well, speaking of bunnies and all this weird stuff. So this month we are playing a relatively new-ish indie game. It came out in 2022 from Hiding Spot Games, Beacon Pines. It's on Xbox Game Pass and Nintendo Switch right now. It was published by Fellow Traveler, and it's a kind of like a narrative adventure game. It's almost like a choose your own adventure, but then you go back and fix the adventure. It's really an interesting game. So I want to go to you guys and ask you what your thoughts were overall. Like always, the first 10 or 15 minutes of this will be spoiler free, just to kind of discuss the game and get to the point of the game, and then after that we're going to spoil all of it. So Stephanie, I'm going your way first.
Yeah, so Beacon Pines, all the credit to Pat for kind of throwing that out as a recommendation, and even as a person who favors story heavy games, I at first wasn't really sure about it when I saw like the cover art, and I'm like, but man, did this take me by surprise. Because art aside, which we'll get to later, I love the illustration.
Mm-hmm.
But despite the cutesy kid animal adorableness, some of those twists went weird, crazy places that just nailed it. I felt like I was reading in the 90s my Goosebumps or Animorphs book, Choose Your Own Adventure, and then things just got real wacky quick. So I think this was a very well balanced choose your own adventure / visual novel, but not, like a little bit of everything. And the methodology of how you choose via charms, which we'll also discuss, I like that idea. And they used unconventional ones. Like one of them was shit. I'm not joking.
Watch your language there, Missy.
It's in the game. Oh, should I say poop?
No. So now I'm just thinking of Billy Madison. You called the shit poop.
So just the fact that it comes off as like a cutesy, fun story time video game, which it also is, but it also is, I don't know, it felt refreshing. It definitely had its own strong identity. So for me, it was an error on my part for don't judge a book by its cover. So thoroughly enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to talk about some of our favorite scenarios.
Yeah, me too. Pat, your thoughts? You're the one that threw this game out there.
Yeah, so I have heard good things about this game when it initially came out, and it was something that I actually did download on Xbox, but I haven't played for like months until we were looking for something to talk about. And I was thinking, you know what? I've heard this game has some spooky themes to it. Maybe this would be a good one, since this does get released in October for everyone that's not a Patreon. Patrons, you get it early.
You do. 1 month early.
Yep. So I'm like, well, this one could kind of be a Halloween one, and it's not too scary that Corey would throw a fit about.
Hey,
So
I played Resident Evil 4 this year, sir.
yes, you did,
And
and I
I'm
am
also
proud of you.
playing Alan Wake, sir.
I know. Next, we're gonna get you so that if this we continue this through next year, we're gonna
Silent Hill
get you to
2.
Outlast.
Ooh,
Mm-mm.
no, not
Nope.
Outlast. I nope, nope. Even I'm like, nope.
No,
How
okay.
about this Silent Hill 2 remake?
If it comes out next year, then fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Uh,
get there.
No,
We're gonna get there.
Outlast. Even
mhm.
with the naked twins, I don't think I can handle that
Mm,
game.
Yeah,
yikes.
there is a lot of dong in that game.
Oh,
Oh my gosh,
jeez.
my
But we're
son
not
just heard
talking
me.
about Outlast. We're talking about Beacon Pines, and Stephanie did give a good description. For me, when I played this game, I was reminded of like Stephen King
Mm,
books, especially ones that revolved around the kids. So like Stand by Me. Um, that was Stephen King, right?
I am not
I
sure.
don't know if it was Stand
I don't
what
know.
it's actually called because I've never seen it, but there's a very famous one with like four kids wandering around a rural town, and that's kind of what this reminded me of, or like a small
Oh,
rural town, and kids go on an adventure, but they stumble upon some spooky stuff. So I described this stuff as a choose your own adventure children's novel, but it was written by Stephen King.
mhm.
Hmm.
I agree.
Uh,
Yeah.
I so I was telling maybe I was telling both of you guys the other day. But when you picked this game and I looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh, one of these, like one of these, and then I started it up. I'm like, oh, this is like a cartoony version of like a Telltale game, right? Like that's initially what I thought. And then I was playing, and I was like, oh, I have to finish this because it's for a book club. And we were in our group chat and I just sent the angry face, the
Oh
cursing
yeah,
angry face,
I
because I was
remember that.
stuck in chapter 4. And then so the way the charms work, right, is like you have to pick the right one to advance the story in the right way. And you can use the other charms to see how, like, you know it's intended for you to use the wrong one so you can figure
Mm,
out which ones not to use when you go back, right? um well, I would be using the charms and I would just put it in the story and then I would go back to where I was, not realizing that if your story was kind of advanced in that way, it wouldn't count. And then Pat informed me that I had to play through that section of the game again to get a new section to kind of play through. And then I also used a guide from True Achievements. It was a really great guide. That guide was great. And I got all the achievements, like a true Xbot, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and I think I don't think, I know it's going to end up on my game of the year list somewhere. The story was really compelling. All the changes that were made, all the like the endings, quote unquote, were like WTF moments, right? Like, especially one that we'll talk about later that involved a hole. So it was pretty crazy. And like I would actually say like the second half of the game is much stronger than the beginning almost. I mean, once you start finding out everything, right, then you start putting it together and you're like, what the, like, oh my God, like this, and then this, and then what, and then you find out about the thing, and then it's pretty good. I would highly recommend this, especially if you have Game Pass. It
yes.
is on PC and it's $20 on Switch, so you can play it that way as well.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, go ahead,
oh,
Pat.
I wanted to actually throw a question to you, Steph. That
Mm,
for me, when like all these like narrative, you reached a narrative ending, and then the author's like, "No, that's not how I think this should have gone." Is this kind of like how it is writing something? Like you're writing like a path, and then you get to a point where you're like, no, no, this isn't what happens, and you have to go like several parts back and try like something like a different branch until you finally get that one true path that leads to like the conclusion that you're looking for.
I actually love that part of the game. I felt like I was being included in the meta-ness of it all. But as a writer, we are kind of categorized into two types: a pantser or a planner. So a planner outlines their plot before they write it, and then a pantser, as you can tell by fly off the seat of your pants, would be kind of like this author, where they just have characters and they just go until they hit a wall that maybe they don't my son is interrupting me, sorry. They don't like an ending, have to go back. So I've kind of flip-flopped between the 2, and there has been a time during my writing where I was, being a pantser, and I was just writing to see where my characters wanted to take me, and I ended up, like, after counting it, I had, like, several, like, bad endings, a couple, when I say medium, like, kind of apathetic endings, and a few, like, happily ever after endings. I'm like, "Oh oh my gosh, which one do I want?" Because there are endings that are positive and some endings that end very tragically, so
Yeah. Um, it was really interesting to see too, like the town too was so like I want to talk about the art style real quick before we kind of move into spoilers. Like I really love the hand drawn kind of profiles of the characters, like when you're kind of reading what they're saying and their little you know their little people pop up, and it's like
Hmm.
that art style is really really nice. I think it fits the character designs really well too, and I love the kind of like almost diorama type.
yes.
uh it kind of almost reminds me of something like uh uh, not in the sense that it's the game is like this, but like when you play Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker, it's just kind of like this small area that you're kind of exploring, right? And it's
Hmm.
I really enjoyed that aspect. And I thought the story was, especially like the beginning and the end, right? When you're playing as what's his name, Luca, like you're playing and like just the whole, we'll say the sad part slash setup for the story also, like at the beginning, um with the tree and the everything, like that was really, I don't know, I really enjoyed it. I really truly enjoyed this story a lot.
Yeah, the art style really triggered kind of my love for comic drawing because that's what
Hmm.
I originally wanted to do before I wrote novels. And the way I describe it's like there's very heavy outlines, it's very thick lined, bright colors, very detailed facial expressions. So I think the specific art and even music direction of keeping things simple but strong and colorful aids us through the primary focus, which is the story.
Hmm.
No, they did a good job with color and with the lighting and how, like, when things did get scarier, the game definitely felt darker. The background scene, the game takes place on a literal book, and
Mhm.
each time that you go into a new area, it's like a page flipped,
Hmm.
and so the page then kind of pops out, not quite like a pop up book, but like you got the feeling that like each part was its own little enclosed map. Uh, I think it was a Paper Mario kind of art style too, where like your character doesn't quite like turn around. He just kind of moves,
Hmm.
like
Like
facing
hop
forward.
around, and if you like
Yeah, like your
turn away,
slip
it
of
flips over.
paper in a yeah, in a puppet
Hmm.
kind of fashion.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of that whole storybook aesthetic. And I also thought that the music that accompanied a lot of the scenes, particularly a scene in the middle of the game, was like very well done. Like I need to go and look up the soundtrack and
Mhm.
maybe listen to it at work
Yeah.
because it did hit some emotional chords with me.
Yeah. uh I mean, do we want to talk about characters, or do we just want to head into spoilers now?
Well, let's. I mean, I say we can like jump into characters. Maybe say who we all liked as a favorite character.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think the easy answer would be Rolo. Uh, I
Oh,
but
Rolo.
I liked the trio though as like a set of characters. I thought that all their interactions were great. Um, Beck was like the emo kid, right? But still, it was really fun. I
You know that
thought
would
the
be Sadie Sink if she was ever cast in a role for this
uh
game.
yeah, I really like the trio of characters as a trio, right? I mean, obviously it's Luca's story, right? And you don't always have them all, especially. I mean, you don't meet Beck until later in the story anyway. But um, Rolo is obviously like the comic relief. So fun, so funny. There's this part where they're playing like, well, they're not playing. They're like acting like good cop, bad cop with somebody, and Rolo's section of that is just hilarious. Um,
I love Rolo's nonsensical like advice.
mhm.
It's just like, oh, if just do this, and good things will happen. How? I don't know. It's just what my dad said.
I know,
Yeah,
and
he quotes his dad a lot, and he believes in aliens pretty
yeah,
strongly.
I was gonna
Zombie
say the
aliens.
whole time this whole mystery is going on, he says he thinks it's aliens the whole time, which is hilarious.
You know, I would have loved to have had an ending where it actually was aliens, and Rolo would be like,
Or like,
Knew it. Yeah.
"Mhm,
not even that, but like when you finish the game, like you go up into the tree house or something, and just like UFO flies by or something.
did
Oh.
it?"
No, I'm saying that would be
Oh
cool.
yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. I'm like, I don't remember this.
Just to like give a little nod to Rolo's, like, aliens
hmm
are out there.
Well, the fact that you mentioned the trio and then Pat talking about more about Rolo's personality, they are very fleshed out primary characters. So, just to kind of review super quick, Luca Van Horn is the main character. His best friend is Rolo, and then later Beck is the new kid on the block. Beck
Mhm,
is the kid that her parents move a lot. Yeah, emo kid doesn't make a lot of friends. Rolo is like the class clown, silly, but right, he's your ride or die friend.
mhm,
Like I said, and even all those tiny details. See, we're quoting it. It's his weird belief in aliens, to the fact that he likes that Atomic Hank comic book series, quotes his dad all the time, and Luca's family situation, which we can get into because it's tied into the plot. All of that deeply fleshes out these characters that you wouldn't think. But for me, as much as I like them, my favorite character is actually William Kerr. And I don't know if I want to get
Oh,
too much into that now, but William
that
Kerr,
character
go
you want
ahead.
to hit.
Yes, but that's
He's a
why I love
character
him
that
so
you just
much.
want to smack so hard.
yeah.
And the
That
choice
I
of
mean,
creating him as a hyena,
mhm,
hmm
yeah,
Oh,
and then
that
all like,
smile.
I mean, we'll get into this in a little bit too, right? It's the clipboards too.
the clipboard,
hmm
super creepy. So
Yeah, they're all like so robotic. It's creepy.
yeah. So, yeah, I like William Kerr because it's the choice that he is a hyena, that he's all like very kind of gussied up, dresses very smart. He's the supposed head of the Perennial Harvest, which is a new business that quote unquote rebuilt this town that kind of fell apart. You could tell something's like not quite right. He smiles too much. You think he's the ultimate bad guy. Is he? Yes, no, maybe so. And then, and I'll save it for the spoiler part, if you click on like everything in the town's library, you look at some books, and one of them had to do with acting by some actor's name you've never heard of.
Patrick C. Montesquieu or something.
Yeah, and
Montesquieu.
you learn a little bit later how it's all tied together. So he's just a example of an antagonist that I just love. Love to hate, but I love.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh,
Pat, how about you? Sorry.
yeah.
Well, obviously Rolo was my favorite. I will say a character with one of the better growths was Iggy, the town
Mhm,
bully.
mhm.
Like there were parts where I absolutely hated Iggy, and then there were parts where I'm like, you know what, this kid ain't that bad. He's kind of funny. You know, once
You know
he's
who they
kind of on
remind
his
me of? Sorry.
chipmunk.
No, you know who they remind me of. I don't know if you guys ever watched Boy Meets World or anything, but they reminded me of the bullies in that show
Hmm.
a little
Oh
bit.
no, they were typecasted bully, the smart, one with the mouth and the big stupid one.
Yeah,
Mm. By the way, what is Iggy supposed to be? A cat? A mouse?
I I
Don't
I
I
would
know.
say
was
some
thinking
kind of
like a
rodent.
chipmunk
Yeah, something like that.
ish,
Maybe.
Yeah,
chipmunk or a squirrel.
yeah.
Not quite a squirrel. The squirrels were obviously the shopkeeper.
Huh. Um, shout out to Roxy though. She's sassy.
The sassy sister of Rolo.
Yeah, who like works at the coffee shop in the middle of town.
You know who I really just got creeped out a lot, and I'm trying to remember his name. Who's the pharmacist that, the dog that had the thing for Gran and had kind of much more of an arc towards a couple of the endings?
Oh, that was started with an N, Mr. Nutcreeds or something.
Nuncreed, yeah.
Yeah.
He gave me just the most creeped out vibes, and I was sad that he was a pharmacist. I'm like, gross.
Did you get the scene with him in the telephone booth?
Yes.
that
Yep.
was that was like man the first one where like it just ends at the telephone booth. I was
You
like,
know what's
oh man.
funny that again that's another Stephen King reference about the creepy pharmacist character.
Oh yeah.
Hey, what do people have against pharmacists?
I
I could
mean,
tell you, but you're not gonna like it.
did you see the latest It?
No,
No.
Oh
no.
my gosh, he was probably more creepier than It. Like he was
Mm,
hitting on the girl character when she's like just a preteen or
Oh
just like young teenage girl, and you know got that like very creepy look to him.
yeah. Ugh.
And also, I'm gonna say Iggy was a chipmunk.
okay, okay.
I'm just gonna double check, but he looks like a chipmunk.
All right.
Man. Well, I guess we can get into some spoilers now because here's where you can tune out everybody if you haven't played the game, or if you don't care, you can keep listening. But I suggest playing the game, and you can come back to this book club uh, because I think it's really important that you see the story through. And it's also, by the way, it's only like if you use a guide, it's only like 5 or 6 hours, maybe.
Not that you need a guide, listener. You don't need one necessarily. But yeah, it's a short game that doesn't overstay its welcome. And I would say, because I've listened to spoiler casts on games I was planning on playing anyway and I didn't care, but I feel like this is the whole process of you finding the right ending, which ending is kind of the whole point of the game.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna have to retract my statement. He's not a chipmunk. Iggy is a jerboa,
he has like a
also
long
known as
tail. Yeah.
yeah. Jerboas are a hopping desert mouse.
Okay.
They
That's
have
what I
long
thought.
ears. They have they're like a mix of a kangaroo and a mouse.
A
Ooh.
Kanga mouse,
Mm-hmm.
No
a
wonder he's
mousearoo.
no wonder he's
Jerboa,
angry all the time. Everyone thinks he's a
hopping desert
chipmunk.
rodent.
Oh.
Okay.
All right, so let's get into some of these chapters here. I guess we'll start at the very beginning. Uh, the game kind of opens up with Luca at his father's grave under the big tree that his father always liked, and he's leaving flowers there for his dad and kind of talking to him or whatever. And this is also where you meet Rolo for the first time because Rolo can't read the room sometimes, apparently. Uh, so this is where we meet kind of our two main protagonists. I thought I thought this was like kind of like a sad, but also like it's like one of those scenes like when you experience a sitcom and there's this really serious moment, right? And then the comic relief always says something to end the scene, right? That's like kind of ridiculous.
Right.
Um, that's kind of how I felt Rolo kind of opened this game.
Yep, and
So
this and just to kind of reiterate Pat's point, we start the game like as the book opens, the
mhm.
author talks to you like, "Hey, let's go through this together, and we'll see where the ending takes us."
Yeah.
So it's an interesting way to start the game. I think it's appropriate. It starts off at his father's grave because it immediately kind of sets the tone because you learn that he lives with his his
Grant. Well, they
grand
call it
moved
Grant.
in. Grant
Yeah.
his grand moved in. So mom went missing, father's passed away, and grand's moved in. So you could tell this, and it being a child going through all of this, like he must it's must be a tough struggle to be at that age and to only now have basically orphaned, right? So
Mhm. Yeah, and, like, it also somewhere in the story says, like, he hadn't seen or, really visited his grandma all that much, right? And he didn't really know her, and he hadn't spoken to her in, like, months, and she just kinda moves in, right, to take care of him.
mhm.
And so that you also have that awkward dynamic too, where, like, he doesn't really know her, and, obviously his parents are gone, and there's just I mean, the kid's going through a lot,
Mm-hmm.
so
So I believe what happens is Rolo says, "Gotta either show you or let's go to mission control," which is their super top secret treehouse. That's not so secret in town
mhm,
at Beacon Pines. But Luca needs to convince Gran that he's gonna go play with Rolo, and that's our first turning point, and that's the author introduces it, right? Like
mhm,
introduces you to what charms are. I think the first one was tickle. You walk through dandelions, you sneeze, and da da da, you got your
mhm,
charm. Which I like the way you get a lot of your charms. I was not expecting sneezing at dandelions giving me a charm called tickle. Like it was very like, whoa, that's not expected or
mhm,
something like that. And it's a nice turning point because you just need to tell Gran what you're going to do. So like like a intro dungeon in like a Zelda game. This is a nice intro turning point where the consequences aren't terribly bad, but it
mhm.
introduces you to the concept.
Yeah. Yeah, the guide specifically said that this turning point won't affect the story because 'cause they're just teaching you how to
Mhm.
like, people react differently to the different charms, which is the point of them, and so, uh, yeah, you kinda go and, like, you're kind of lying, but not really to Gran, right? Because you know,
You're just
that's how it was
leaving out
working.
details.
Yeah, yeah. What charm did you guys pick there?
I went with all three of them.
Oh, well, I mean, I think it makes you pick at least a second one, but,
There's
I
ponder, hide, and chill. So I went with
yeah,
chill because I'm like, that's the most, I don't know, obvious kid answer. Mom, I'm gonna go chill, or Gran, I'm gonna go chill.
yeah, that's the one I ended up with.
Ponder was kind of funny. We're gonna go ponder.
Yeah.
Huh? We guys gonna go ponder? Ponder this, ponder a little that.
Oh, that's yeah, that's funny. And then, you go to mission control, but, like, the way Rolo enters at first, he, like, backs up and tries to make sure nobody sees him back up into the woods, which is really funny. Uh, it's like it's clearly right out in the open. Like, there's a little fishing pond area that you go through,
Mhm.
and, it actually has, like, a side quest attached to it, but and then he just runs into the woods like mission control. Meh. So the fishing uh memory, the first fishing memory or whatever, was really cute though. Like, because like you never the whole point is like a flashback to him and his father when they used to go fishing or sit by the pond or lake or whatever, and you have your hand at fishing, and throughout the game there are eight charms associated with this mini game, and each charm has a specific item attached to it, and you get 100 achievement points if you complete all of them.
I was gonna say, was there any particular like special scene that you get? Because I think I missed one from that, but there's like another side quest from like the mom side that I 100% of that side quest and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't get anything.
Yeah, that one should have had an achievement too, but
Yeah.
it was just seeing some cute scenes, like some of the artifacts that you fish out of the lake, like gave like questionable responses,
Hmm.
such as like a missing pocket watch or a picture of the dad and the uncle.
Yeah, I actually think maybe they like kind of hinted at other charms at some point. Uh, but I don't really know because after that first one, I just kind of went back and did them all in a row, so I wasn't really paying
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah, quick thing on so I did like those side quests because it gave you a little bit of, well, a flashback, a history between the relationship with the parents. But not only that, but for that reason, you can't come back with other charms. And by the time you've gotten those charms, you're into the story more. So the
Hmm.
father comments on a lot of things related to the story. So I'm like,
Yeah.
that, and this is why I think Beacon Pines stands out because there are charms that you use in the fishing side quest that just it has no real like association to what lore you're using. So it's like
Hmm.
Mhm.
sticky. What's the sticky going to be? It ends up being like
A rubber
something.
band,
Yeah, I don't know. I just
like one of
it's
those little rubber slap hands
yeah,
where
Hmm.
you slap something with it and it's supposed to grab it.
it's very clever.
Yeah. Um,
I wonder how he fished with bees. That I was like, huh?
don't worry about it. It's fine.
Okay,
Just
okay, I
just
won't worry
just
about
take
it.
it as it is, Patrick. Pat,
How do you fish with bees?
you put the bee on the hook and you put it in the water, and then the fish eat it, or the boot, I guess.
How, Bee in the how, I'm so confused now.
uh,
How do bees draw boots?
Wasn't one of them like just a string? I forget. There's a lot of like really random stuff. I'm like,
yeah. Well, it was junk. I think was one, and he pulled a
junk.
string out. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, which was funny. I was like, junk. I like when I was first doing that. I thought you're gonna have to like find the bait for the fishing rod, and like you would get an achievement for catching a fish, but then you just ended up using all these random items and getting random stuff. So
Yeah,
I
you
was
never
wrong.
do catch a fish.
But they still make you try because the first time before I learned what the mechanic was, I just hit the reel button. And if you
Hmm.
don't give it some slack once in a while, you won't catch what you're catching. So
Yeah,
little tiny details. I love it.
yeah. Uh, so we get to mission control, right? And there's a pile of trash on the right that you can kick and get stuff a charm out of. But
Mhm.
uh, I th- I think like, oh, Rolo makes you pass this test to where you have to throw rocks at these targets, and it like actually teaches you a mechanic that you're going to use a couple times throughout the game, which
Mhm.
I thought was cool looking back on. Um, and mission control, and they have like this weird satellite, but not really thing hanging out beside it, and um, I thought it was a really neat kind of like, oh, kids in a treehouse. It kind of reminds you of like when you were little and always wanted a treehouse and never got one. Um, so what's happening next after this? I kind of
Frollo explains the big news that he had, that there was something weird going on at the
right,
old abandoned fertilizer plant
right, right,
that's
right,
by
right.
his house.
Yeah,
That there were lights and noises coming from it late at night.
yeah,
Ooh, should we do like just a quick high level of that history for the town? So
Yeah.
probably,
Beacon
yeah,
Pines, small hick town in the middle of nowhere. It was brought to prosperity by Sharper Valentine. Became a very rich, famous person that really made the town the way it is with his fertilizer company. Because his fertilizer apparently grew really well, and then all of a sudden they had these amazing crops. And then one day there was something called the foul harvest, and all the crops they died. Then Sharper Valentine, they said, either died or went missing, and then the town just fell into ruin because that's what they relied on so much. And then a
mhm,
new company came in called Perennial Harvest, which is the one modern looking
Mhm.
building in a town with old school buildings, to try and kind of revitalize Beacon Pines. So that's just the background. So that's where the whole fertilizer mill comes in. It's supposed to be, abandoned. Nobody uses it, but yeah, there's some activity going on.
yeah. Yeah, and that the first time you go there, right? With I think the first time you go there, you go by yourself. Um, and it's really creepy, and that's where you get one of the one of the first endings. Uh,
Didn't Rolo go with you, but you have to choose between, like, if he goes
well,
with you because
Oh,
you hide in the trash.
the first time I went, Rolo didn't go.
Oh,
yeah.
because it's the
Rolo's
rendezvous with
sister.
Roxy.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
if
you,
you
you don't
use
have the
the
word yet to get
Mhm.
Rolo to come with you. So the first time you go by yourself.
yeah, because you have to say to Roxy that you act like a little shit or whatever.
That's the charm you get at the first ending.
Yeah,
Your first charm ending is shit, and when that popped up on my screen, I laughed out loud. I'm like, "This game's awesome."
yeah, it was pretty funny. I
So
was
who
like,
wants to describe that?
I um Pat, you should describe it. You're the man with many words.
All right. So one of the choices that you get is you have to either act cool with Roxy or chill, as the charm was, and you just kind of be like, "Hey, it's the first day of school or the first day of summer. Why can't he go and do this?" And Roxy's like, "No dice. He's working with us. He's got to do work on the farm."
Mhm,
Uh, but later on, there's a choice where it's being a little shit
mhm.
is the best way to deal with Roxy, in which case Luca then walks up and he kicks her. And Rolo's like, "What the hell did you just do?"
Which was pretty violent. I'm like, who just runs up and kicks someone who's like, assuming like these
A little
kids are
shit
like
does.
10 or 12 or somewhere in that range, right? Like,
Hmm.
I mean, I could see like my son or even maybe my daughter, even though we're trying to get her to stop doing that stuff, but like going up and just randomly kicking someone is like, no, no.
Even it shocked the hell out of Rollo, and he's like, and Luca's like, "No time, run."
Yeah,
Mhm,
run. Oh
But
man.
yeah, the first choice lets makes Luca go to the plant by himself.
mhm.
And when Luca's at this plant by himself, he gets spotted by this big old guy in a yellow hazmat suit, and then the guy drags him into the abandoned factory, and that is probably the first bad ending that you actually get in this game,
Yeah.
uh, and that is where you get. I think that's where you get the shit as
Yeah, that's where
well.
you get the shit charm, and at first I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh, man, I can't play this game good. I got the bad ending." But it's very clear that Beacon Pines wants you to go through certain bad endings first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're learning information about the town, and then when you go replay these scenes, the information is clear to your head, even though it's not clear to the kids
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
But then the second time you go around, you have Rollo there, and with his help, you guys are able to get into a dumpster.
Mhm.
And so now you miss the hazmat guy because you're hiding in a dumpster, but the hazmat guy is dragging a very suspicious looking bag and throws it into the dumpster with the kids. And
Yeah.
that's where the kids get the first real, like, there's something very wrong with this town right now.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a name tag with
Hmm.
the body bag.
Yeah.
Oh, Rollo, you can stop holding my hand now.
Yeah. Did we ever figure out who was in that body bag?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the original lead engineer,
Oh,
or
right.
Beck's
Right.
mom takes
Yeah,
it.
because Beck's mom took over okay.
Hmm.
Oh man, that
Yeah,
that makes sense now. I was
Mhm.
like, I didn't even
like
put that
random
together
body.
when I was playing, to be honest.
Yep. But
Ugh.
anyways, yeah, the comment about Rollo holding hands with Luca, and Rollo's like, "I'm not holding your hand," and that's when Luca realized he's holding a severed arm.
Which would be scary if you're that young. It's scary
Yeah.
now, I guess, but
Hmm.
you know. Uh,
Yep.
so advancing the story.
That's kind of where things really start splitting up more because in that scenario, one is where you split up with Rollo and then
Hmm.
Rollo ends up missing.
Hmm.
Yeah, when you go with Rollo, you guys try to escape at different times to be less
Hmm.
likely to get caught. However, you find out Rollo never actually, made it back to town because his sister was looking for him the next day.
Hmm.
Where another path is because you left alone and you eventually get another Q word, which allows you to grab a rock and smack it against the hazmat guy, making letting Luca escape.
Mhm.
Rollo's okay in that one because Rollo never actually got to the plant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you kind of the ending where you end up back in your house eating breakfast. And there's a couple cute achievements here too, where if you turn on the faucet and leave the fridge door open, Gran scolds you like the next day or whatever, and you get an achievement for that, which is really nice. It's really funny. Which I wasn't even paying attention. I was just opening the doors and stuff because I was exploring. I wanted to find. I thought maybe there was like a charm, maybe in the fridge or one of the doors, or one of those things. And so, um, they is this where they also found the walkie talkies?
Yeah, they find the walkie-talkies in the trash.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, so I'm I'm getting my beginnings and endings confused here now.
Well, we're getting to the point now where the story's been branching off into
Yeah.
multiple paths. So, one of the paths, like the first path you really take, is the one where Rollo goes with you and he goes missing.
Mhm.
So the town's going around looking for him, and while you're looking for him, you run into another character named Beck,
Mhm.
Right,
and
this is
she
where you
just
meet
kind of
Beck.
moved into town.
Yeah. And then you kind of befriend her. This isn't where you go to Beck's house, is it?
Not quite yet.
No, that's when you that's if you save Rolo and then you stay at Beck's house during the storm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That one Rolo hasn't. That was the path that Rolo didn't go because
Yeah.
Rolo was still around.
Yeah.
I forget you meet Bex out on the street while you're looking around for Rolo, and I'm trying to remember why she follows you. I think
She follows you because she doesn't have any friends and her moms want her to have friends, right?
yeah, that was
Mhm.
that was the reason for the split where Rolo wasn't missing. I'm trying to remember because you were looking for Rolo, and I think you were going to the woods. And I don't know why she decided to just tag along with you. I think maybe she was just bored.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
you get to like
The
the
weird
Uzi part, and
barrel.
that's where you meet
Iggy
Iggy.
and
Hmm.
friend, and this was definitely the two options because Iggy's obviously just picking on you, and you're near the hazardous waste place, and you see like this goop, which it says it feels very cold, and you're
Oh yeah, it's like, what do you do when you find weird things? Science. What's
so,
science? Poke it with a stick.
yeah. It's funny how the two charms here was to react to Iggy, strange or tickle.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So my first
Yeah.
choice was I forget what charm it was, but it's the one where I essentially pushed Iggy into the puddle, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh no,
That's
and
strange.
Yeah.
strange, and then he gets all deformed.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
Uh, which that has a really sad ending to it too.
mhm.
That branch. Um,
Yes.
uh, I mean, we'll get there, but yeah, that's where like Iggy has a turning point, and I assume like within both branches, Iggy has that turning point at the
And the
at
character
that
growth.
point,
Yeah.
yeah. But in both branches, but obviously one is you find it out differently in one branch than you do the other. So
Yeah. The one has Iggy being deformed, and then the second one, if you tickle, Iggy ends up kicking the puddle, and a bit falls onto Beck's hair, turning it white.
Hmm.
yeah, was it? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I was like, wasn't it blue? But Beck decides to dye it
Yeah,
later in the
Beck
story.
dyes her hair blue
Yeah.
to cover it up.
Yeah. Um,
So then that's kind of where you get stuck, and so you then move on to the path where Bex or not Bex Rolo actually doesn't come with you, and you escape because you decide to fight,
mhm.
and then you get home, and Rolo's like, "Hey, what the hell happened?" And you say, "Oh, we'll talk about it a little bit later today." And your grandmother has you go deliver jars of jam to the locals
Mhm.
nearby. And that's also where you run into Bex again, and Bex is like, "Hey, you know, I need you to answer some questions. Pineapple or anchovies?" And then, no, that was the only question she asked: pineapples or anchovy. And Lucas says pineapple, which is the obvious choice.
Hmm.
And you go, and she's like, "Okay, I need you to follow me for a second." You go and you meet Beck's parents, which are both mothers, or they're both females.
Hmm.
So it's another kind of like thing that made Bex a little different from the town, is she had two moms instead of the traditional father mother
The
pairing.
the one mom actually has the same name as my sister-in-law.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I'd
Nice,
never seen that name before, and I saw it in the game, so that was cool. It was neat.
nice. Yeah, so she's like, "Okay, so this is my new friend. You said that I should meet new friends, and here's my friend." And I was just like, "Oh, cool! You should come over for dinner." And Lucas tries to back out because Lucas like, "No, I gotta go with my friend." And Beck's like, "Oh yeah, of course Lucas coming to dinner.
Yeah,
Lucas' favorite food is pizza with pineapple on it."
yeah.
Um,
That whole
and
scene was kind of awkward too, though, where they finally eat dinner together, like because the one mom like works a lot, and they like I think they were kind of sort
yeah,
of arguing about that.
they both worked in like a science. They both worked in like botany, but one actually was a gardener who believed in doing things by hand
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
work with nature, and the other one was a chemical engineer who wanted to create, who wanted to like genetically manipulate. And so they both kind of butted heads on that subject. And when you find out that one of the moms actually gave up her career so that the other one could further her career as the chemist.
Yeah, which is why
That
they
was
moved to
a
Beacon Pines in the first place.
Yeah, I
yeah,
love that family dynamic because the story definitely showed us this tension you can feel between the two parents, like one struggling not to resent the other,
Hmm.
and then as all kids do, they can sense when parents, just aren't getting along or if things ain't right. They've already moved a bunch. So even though this was like a very tame part of the story, like nothing super crazy happened, I really enjoy the richness of it because it also, depending what you do when a thunderstorm or rain rolls in, it leads to kind of a conflict with your best friend, Rollo, because you have a new friend back, which I don't know, I just feel like it's relatable. When you're kids, sometimes we get in these petty little jealousy fights, so I just thought it was a great story beat and further development in the story.
Yeah.
yeah. Before we jump there,
Mm.
I do want to talk about the scene that happens when you choose that there's a thunderstorm coming and you're actually stuck in Beck's house,
Hmm.
and in her bedroom, and you get to explore. And she kind of tells her a little bit about her story of having to move from place to place and just not really like fitting in. And the part where they decide that they're just going to yell their grievances at the storm,
Yes.
that to me also had one of the best music scene, because like the music just dramatically gets louder
Yeah.
when Luca opens up the window and starts yelling at the universe about how it's unfair that his dad had to die when he was so young, and that his mom just disappeared, and how like it's just like he wants to have a normal life. And like and Bex does the same thing with like her grievances about her two moms and being pushed into directions that she doesn't want to go, and just wanting to have stability instead of having to pick up and move all the time. Like to me, those emotional like outbursts like really hit a strong chord and actually made me very misty eyed.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it was just because of the fact that they're two kids that just like trying to air out what's bugging them, or the beautiful music that was happening with it. But to me, this was my favorite scene in the entire game.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. I don't know, it's showcasing kind of raw human emotion, and especially with children who are most vulnerable, and sometimes they don't always have the place or ability to express how they feel, and quite often they have to hold it in or repress it due to other outside factors such as parents and whatnot. So
Hmm.
I'm going to try
Yeah,
that next time there's a thunderstorm.
Just yell out your grievances in an
Hell
open window.
yeah. Hell yeah.
yeah. And also, it really impacts. I mean, obviously, Rollo doesn't know about them yelling, but like the fact that they did something so kind of almost intimate with each other, right? Like they had that moment being friends that we don't. I mean, we don't know if they ever have, but
Well,
Rollo
no, we
and
do
Luca
know.
ever
Lucas
had.
said that he never talked about this with anyone else.
I didn't.
About his issues.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean that exactly. I just meant like
Hmm.
having maybe some sort of close friendship, intimate moment, right? Where
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, yeah,
Oh,
they,
yeah. That's what I meant. He never had that with Rollo, so
yeah,
that's
which,
definitely a jealousy moment for Rollo.
yeah, which sometimes I think when you're too close to someone, or really close with someone for a long time, it is harder to talk about stuff like that. Like it's hard to talk about certain things with people that you're super close with, or friends with, or and the fact that like back they barely knew each other, sometimes it's easier to talk about certain things,
Mhm.
for some reason. I know I have issues with that, of like talking about stuff.
Or if your very close friend is more of the jokey, not take things seriously type, which I know can also be a coping mechanism, but just sometimes it's the character dynamic, like the differences in personality, which might make it
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
challenging.
I definitely think that it's, like usually when you meet people, there is, or at least for me, there I can usually sense some sort of like a connection of like, what kind of level of
Mm,
friendship can I have with this person? Like, there are friends that I'm willing to tell them about things in my past, that I definitely won't tell anyone else, just because I honestly, I've had that used on me in the past, so I know not everyone can understand or care to understand like struggles that some people go through, but other people you can sense this person might have gone through some of the same struggles, which might have been the case with Beck and Luca, is that they both struggled, and Luca could probably sense that with Beck and vice versa, and that's how they were able to connect on that kind of a level.
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess that's kind of how I related to the scene.
mm,
Yeah.
Where like I other friends like the or the Rolo friends, like, yeah, we're cool, we hang out, we have a lot of fun, we joke around, but they I try not to involve my actual personal like thoughts and feelings in those kind of friendship, because I don't want to ruin, I guess, that kind of companionship. Like, I'd be worried that I'd say something that was too heavy for them, and then they'd kind of run away.
Yeah.
mm.
uh so we are on what, chapter 4? Nope, 5 ish, because the
Well,
dinner scene was in chapter
it's
4.
kind of hard to judge just because
Yeah.
chapter fours and fives were like,
Yeah, I mean,
uh,
there's one point where you go to chapter 9 and you go back to chapter 5 to fix the story, right? So
yeah.
uh
But I guess, we go back to after the rain, and, you finally make it to the treehouse. It's late, and Rollo gets pissed off,
Mm.
and he says something he definitely did not want to say. Like,
yeah.
it was a heat of the moment, well, your father's dead or something. I don't know. It was
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
around that lines, and it's like, ooh,
Yeah, that one stings. But we've all been in that situation before, right? Where we're fighting with someone and we say something that we absolutely know we shouldn't have said. Like
hmm
that's always the tough part, where you're on the where whichever end you're on, you're always it's just not a good situation.
No.
yeah. So that leads Luca to have a fit of depression and literally stay in his room for a day and a half
Hmm. Yeah.
before he and before he is convinced to leave and go on this little scavenger trip that Rollo sets up.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually he finds Rollo back at the treehouse. They have their dude, I'm sorry discussion. Let's just chill and hang out for the rest of the day. But little did they know, Chill had another meeting at that treehouse.
Mm-hmm.
While they're sitting around just chilling, a massive freeze happens and encases everything in a block of ice.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, what the hell just happened?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my first huge like what?
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
That's where you knew like something was really going on. You're like, what? What? This doesn't make sense. And
Yep. And at
uh,
this point, you're kind of forced to go to the other storyline,
Yes.
back where Iggy became a deformed monster and Rollo was missing.
mhm.
So I think this was one of your favorite parts, Corey. So why don't you go ahead and lead the discussion on this one?
What with Iggy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what happens with the Iggy and Luca
Yeah.
come?
So like we said before, if you choose the tickle option, uh Beck tickles, and it's like this weird scene, but it's kind of funny to watch. Uh but later on you start figuring out like, okay, there's something weird happening in this town. And they somehow we get into like the part where they're like in this, like, it's the town, but it's like snow covered.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, the deformed Iggy and Luca need to escape from the treehouse, and they do this weird grapple
yeah,
escape into the backwoods.
right. And like yeah, because they're in the treehouse, and the clipboards show up, and they can't really escape, right? And I think the one option is to to attack or whatever,
Yeah,
and Rollo's weapon doesn't work, and
Yeah,
so
it
not a
just
good ending.
it
yeah,
just hits like, or it just like falls to the ground, and this is also where you really understand that William Kerr is not a good person.
yeah, yeah,
This is where he decides to show his teeth a
yeah,
little.
Yeah.
yeah. So if you attack, you get you don't live. You get captured or whatever, and like that's one of the endings. And then there's another choice. I forget what the choice is. Like you're just kind of like locked in the treehouse. But the third option that you get the charm later, right, is like you escape, right, and you escape out of the treehouse on the zip line, and you end up in this snowy part of they don't know where they're at. I mean, we as a player kind of know where we are because all the environments kind of look similar, but you go to the snowy part and it looks just like Beacon Pines, but they think it's familiar, but they can't really tell. And then this is where like you throw a pebble at the sign and the snow falls off and it's Beacon Pines, and they don't understand.
Yeah.
So they're like wandering through town, and they see this is where you see the hole in the middle of town for the first time, right? And
Hmm.
so you're running from the clipboards, and you go to the middle of town, and you are kind of looking at this hole in the ground, and Kerr shows up, right, to try to like take you away. I think there's some clipboards there too.
Yep.
And this was like a really touching moment and really sad. This ending was really sad. I like kind of was like, I think I might stop for the night at this one. Uh
Mm.
and Luca and Iggy are having this, they're kind of fighting off Kerr or whatever. They're yelling back and forth, and finally, they have the firework, right? That
Hmm.
was the thing, is they have the firework, right? And
That's when Iggy realized that this was the true Beacon Pines because he
mhm,
hid these fireworks
behind the
to
tree.
yeah, because he accidentally burned down a chicken coop, and then when he went to go back to them, they were gone, and he just thought someone, found him and just took them. But then
Mhm.
he realized, no, they're still there. It's just
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
they're in the real town.
yeah, and they're kind of like, is this the point where they have the discussion that how do you move a whole town without anybody
Mhm.
noticing? This
Mm-hmm.
is that, right? And
Yeah.
so, uh, and after they are struggling with Kerr, um, Iggy and Kerr fall into the hole, but like they're holding on to the edge, and Luca's trying to save Iggy. And this is where Iggy has a really great turning point, but it's a too little, too late, and like Iggy sacrifices himself, herself, himself to
Well, he
save.
wants
It's
to, right? You have to
Yeah,
choose to refuse or accept.
yeah, and it's really sad when you accept it, right? It's really heartbreaking because they fall into the hole, right? And obviously Iggy's dead, but I think this is a point too where like the town freezes, like you're trying to escape and the town
no,
I
freezes.
nope.
think
This is where the firework creates a catalyst just
Right,
powerful enough to freeze the hole close.
right,
And then you have that random rabbit person come by and it's like, you're just the person we need to help save the world. And then it's like, be
right.
ready for Beacon Pines 2, more
mm,
pining. Like,
exactly. So it's like your first not negative ending, but the author is getting increasingly frustrated in tone, like, oh, but this ain't right. We
no,
can't.
Yeah,
No.
we can't end on a cliffhanger.
right.
Mm.
Also, like, have just kind of like a side thing. Have we talked about any of like the black screens, like him finding like like an older version of himself and his dad? Have we had any of those yet by this point?
Oh,
Like the
the
flash?
weird dreams.
Yeah,
We've had dreams, yeah.
yeah,
And the
maybe,
dreams are almost premonition to what's about to happen.
yeah. So I didn't know if this was a point where that we can talk about those after the next point in the story. So
Hmm.
Pat, what happens next?
All right. Well, after all that weird freezing incident takes place, you decide to take the path where you go and visit Rollo. Like the storm never happened, so you can actually go and visit um, Rollo in his treehouse, and you explain what happened, and uh, they're like, "Oh man, that's crazy! Like we should like keep track and like figure out what's happening here."
And
Um,
this is where Rollo meets Beck for the first time, right? Yes.
yep, and they were both like kind of hitting it off, but also insulting each other.
Yeah.
Mm.
Their I
Um,
mean their personalities are clearly opposite.
mhm. And I think Rollo was the one who also was like, "Dude, something weird's going on with your grandmother.
Hmm.
Like I'm seeing her like check these people out, so we need to check your house and see if
Mhm.
like your grandmother's hiding stuff."
Hmm.
Oh, love this
So
one.
they do that the next day when the grandmother's out and about, and that's where you stumble into Grandma's little hidden lair behind the cupboard.
Do we have we seen Gran in the hazmat suit yet?
No, we're told like can talk to some of the people, and there's talk about like things being returned, and or like a suit being returned,
Hmm.
but Gran has not officially. You know what? No, you're right. When you're walking, that's when you find out that Grant. When you're walking home, when the storm doesn't hit,
Hmm.
you're walking past
The
the house
mansion,
of what's their name?
The
The Valentine
the
Valentine's.
estate,
Valentines.
and you see Grandma walking out with the hazmat suit. Uh, that looks exactly like the same one of the people who tried to kidnap Luca.
Hmm.
But
So that
face mask wasn't broken, so it's like, is she bad? Is
yeah,
she not bad? And she's talking to the heiress, who is
they made a deal, but it was
yeah.
still
Hmm.
like Eris comes up as one of those, oh, this might be a villain because she's a stuck up bitch, but
Yeah, she
truth
is the
is,
daughter of the sharper Valentine.
you know
Hmm.
what, we really talk about uh
The
the
Valentines at all?
the Valentine slash the what is it called, the Bad Harvest,
We
Foul
didn't.
Harvest.
the
Yeah,
Foul Harvest,
yeah,
yeah.
we did like
Okay.
a very high level overview, but
Okay.
not about his successors. So there's the heiress,
Yeah.
Valentine, but there's also Augustus or Gus Valentine, who's the mayor, and he's kind of a pathetic mayor.
Yeah,
Yep.
he looks like He looks like a depressed alcoholic who just like shows up when he's needed, right? I mean, his
Yeah.
tie's not done, his shirt's unbuttoned and
And every time we
untucked.
talk to him, he's like, "Oh, can you just leave me alone?"
Yeah, he's clearly very mopey. So they really picked a good character design for him, by the way.
Yeah,
I love that character design. It's so like it's so depressing.
yeah. So, anyways, that's why we get the impression that we need to investigate the grandmother
Hmm.
more, and then we find her little underground dungeon.
Exactly. And in that dungeon, you see that typical board with all like the pieces of
The cork boards.
yarn. Yep, and you see I think like explosive barrels and just a lot of things, but not enough to tell if Gran's like really bad, but it's not looking good either. I
Yeah,
don't know if
Hmm.
there's anything in particular you want to point out, but they start hearing footsteps, and I got really nervous. I'm like, oh no, Gran's back,
yeah. But it ended up being the
Mr.
like
Tolliver.
yeah, and he's obviously a part of it too. And this is where the good cop bad cop stuff comes in, which is like this is my favorite scene in the whole game.
Yeah, you
Uh
have options between being chill, hard, or sly.
yeah, and
Yep.
each charm gives you like one of the kids, like each charm is kind of assigned to a different kid. So like uh and I think Bex ends up being the best one or the
Sly,
good
the
Sly.
one
choice or
that
whatever. Yeah.
yeah, Sly is the one that doesn't lead to a dead end.
Hmm.
Yeah. Which was really fun. And like this is also where you like find files of like, Luca's medical or his dad's medical files in there. And
Oh,
like
right.
the board with like the crazy string board of like kind of like the Charlie Day uh
Hmm.
Yep.
Always
This
Sunny.
person has a target. This person has a question mark. Like, who's all in on this whatever conspiracy that's affecting the town? The only one that had there was a target on uh, William Kerr, and then I think there was a check mark on uh, the pharmacist.
Hmm. The evil pharmacist.
Yeah.
Hmm. But yeah, so you had these various options. The cool option where Luca is the one in charge. He's like, "Oh, we're sorry about that. Hey, so what's Grandma up to?" And Oliver's like, "Oh, just doing things. Hold on, I need to get up here for a second." And then he locks the kids in the basement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you had the hard ending, or the hard one, which is your favorite, and involved Rollo.
Yeah. Rollo basically like tackles him. It's so funny.
I mean, he's shining the light, and just
Yeah.
Rollo like puts so much intensity that he makes Mr. Tolliver just pass out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is
It's
so
like
funny.
you went a little too hard, Rollo.
Oh man, that part's funny. And then Beck is the sly ending is the one that you want to continue the story, which is
Where
you
she
know
pretends that she's part of the group, and the reason why is because she's the inconspicuous kid. And
yeah,
Mr. Tolliver's like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. We needed one of those."
yeah, idiot.
Mhm. And
He
that's
looks
when you
like
find. Oh, go
uh
ahead.
Tolliver looks like Flanders from The Simpsons.
He does.
Yeah.
Uh,
uh man.
Yep, and that's where you find out that Grandma had some plans.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, the hard ending. While you escape from the dungeon, your character accidentally grabs a thing of jam because he's hungry, and he finds
Hmm.
out that the jam is drugged, and he gets locked in his room until the event happens,
Hmm.
the big freeze.
Everything
But then
freezes.
the sly ending is you are free. You know that the fair is going to be targeted for some reason, and that's kind of where you also find out that Kerr had some big speech planned, and while he's giving it, the whole town freezes over. So none of those endings really were good, but it gives you what you needed to get when you run into the pharmacist on another ending.
But before we get there, I think one of the farthest ways you can go in this branch, it's called Fire and Ice, and that's where there's essentially a confrontation between the pharmacist and Gran. Gran is like about to throw a torch into the pit that has
Oh yeah, okay.
explosives, which I thought was like very intense and one of my like most heartbreaking endings for me because you can choose to either hum or weep. Weeping
Hmm.
doesn't do too much; you just freeze over or whatever.
Weeping enforces the Grand to throw the torch in the pit
Yes,
because she's like, "See, children are suffering. This ends now."
and then hum. I didn't get it at first. Then Gran starts humming too, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, the only person who knows that song would be my mother. And
Hmm.
yeah, so apparently this chemical like accelerates the growth or aging of whatever it touches. So it turns out that Gran's not really his Gran, but actually his mom, who was exposed to the chemical and looks much older.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
that
we
was
find out
touching.
later, like when Rollo was you know, kidnapped and he was in the facility, right? He gets exposed to it too, and is like an old man now.
Like a
Not an old
teen
man,
or
but like
yeah.
a late teens probably, but still really funny. I like Big Rollo because he
I
puts
like
that
Big Rallo when he had the
yeah.
mustache.
That was so funny. That like the art for that is so funny. It's
Mhm.
so good.
Hmm.
It's so good. Uh,
Yeah.
and then
No,
this.
I'm glad you brought that one up, Stephanie. I totally forgot about that big plot twist. That was also very touching.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that kind of, as much as it was a saddish ending, like I don't know, it definitely was a satisfying turn, and obviously a very important piece of information to bring back when you start on back on the other one of the other branches.
Mhm.
Hmm. But now we're kind of we're narrowing down what is the actual true branch, which is a path that Rollo got kidnapped, and then Rollo comes back as a full-grown teenager.
Yeah,
Who are you? It's me. Stop kidding around. He's like, man, my hands got big.
it's like,
Yeah, I got this weird superpower that my hand just got really big. It
Yeah.
wouldn't have been my first choice, but
And
it's
then
useful.
yeah, and then Luca's like, it's not just your hands, and he looks down. Whoa, my feet got bigger too. Oh, that part was really funny. And then I mean, that comes in too, right? And like, who's this guy? And they're just trying to convince everybody that Rollo is Rollo, and that's pretty funny too.
Yeah. And then that's when they know that something really shady is going on with Pinnacle Harvest, and they need to jump in and kind of figure out what's going on. And you know what? Going back to your grand ending, because this was actually another reveal here. Because when you got the grand ending, the freeze didn't happen. They decided to go back to the festival and confront William Kerr. And that
oh,
is where the real mastermind shows up for the very first time.
mhm.
We find out William is not the founder of the Perennial Harvest. It's actually the original founder of the town, Sharper Valentine, but Sharper Valentine was a kid or in a kid form.
Yeah. Also had some sort of freak exposure or experiment with this chemical, so it almost kind of Benjamin buttoned himself as a kid, and he
Hmm.
was working for the right time to make his grand reappearance, which ended up being the whole point of the festival.
Mhm.
Yep. And that was the bad ending because he's like, okay, well, I'm ruling this town in fear, and you're all going to like it, or else I'm just going to kidnap you and do experiments.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
that's now where we're starting to go with the true ending and
yeah.
finding what's going on with Perennial.
Yeah. And the next part was probably my favorite kind of chapter in the game, like the heist.
The
And there
heist, yeah.
the game is worth playing for the heist alone, I think. Um so they make this plan that Rollo, Luca, and Beck are all going to meet at the treehouse at some point to go over their plans for the heist. And the heist is they're going to infiltrate Perennial Harbor to break, to get to break out Beck's mom because she doesn't know she's part of this plan. She's just being paid really well to do the science part of it, right? And this is where Raleigh wears the mustache, and he's like, "I have something for the founder." And the clipboard at the desk wouldn't like buzz him in or whatever. Oh wait, also the clipboard outside too. He like had to convince to let him in, and then one of the other characters like pokes the electrical box or whatever, and what stuff.
Yep, Beck's other mother hits the electrical box.
Mm-hmm.
Before that happened, though, we also run back into Iggy, and because of
Oh right.
yeah, you know what? Actually, this was very weird because Iggy made a comment back when Iggy was deformed about how he always wanted to see the treehouse,
Mm-hmm.
and I. Luca is not supposed to remember anything that happened in another timeline, so I thought it was kind of weird that he's like, "Well, if you do this favor for us, you guys can come in and join our treehouse,"
Yeah.
which was something that Iggy had always wanted. Like Iggy described himself as the only reason I'm being a bully is because I want you to fight back. Like this is his way of being like friends and wanting someone that actually can have a meaningful conversation with him. Because his other friend, while loyal, is also not the most strongest in conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yup. Yup.
Yep.
So
Yep.
he gets Iggy involved and shoots fireworks to distract the front desk guard, so that
Yeah.
Rollo can actually get in.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
also, Rollo's argument with the one at the desk was really funny. And so, yeah, and the fact that he's just pushing this wooden crate around, like that's not suspicious at all. But they all get in. Also, like that when they're running down the hallway, Luca and maybe it's just Luca at that point, but like there's no water in the or there's no cups for the water in the water stand. That
That
was
was
really
kind
funny.
of funny.
Yeah. I thought that would have been like a fun hidden achievement. Take a drink of water out of the
Yeah.
watering whatever. But um, Luca's trying to find the office for the founder while Rolo and Beck are trying to break Beck's mom out of the science room or whatever. I guess the lab is what you would call that. And like when Luca is in the hallway, runs into Solomon at that point.
Solomon, the kid,
Yep.
Yeah,
kid
Solomon, the
Valentine.
yeah,
sharper Valentine's kid form.
yeah. And he ends up like going like he ends up having to stick with Luca, and he's like really frustrated, right? And you go in
We
this
know
room.
why Luca doesn't, but we know that
Yeah,
he's sharper.
yeah, because we saw the bad ending before, and so they you have to do all like press all these buttons and do all these things and shut stuff down and uh all this stuff, and you kind of have conversations with Solomon, right? And you're trying to contact Rollo and Beck to see if they're there yet, or they're trying to find it, or whatever. And then all of a sudden, Solomon presses the big red button, right, which calls all the clipboards. Maybe that's after they get Rollo and
Well, they're trying to open doors, and Solomon's like, "Oh, obviously it's this big red button here," and it's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I guess that just alerted everyone. There's something going on here." Whoa!
Yeah. And then the clipboards are chasing right. The clipboards are chasing Rollo and Beck, and then
But it's not really Rollo and Beck that they're chasing. That's just the scene that we think they're chasing.
yeah,
It turns out to be Roxy and her friend.
yeah. Uh, so yeah, because they're involved too, and so at the end of this chase and whatever, they all Roxy and her friend end up, I think, escaping, right, and then Rollo and Beck and the mom
Roxy
are
kicks the clipboard just
yeah,
like the little shit move. It was a perfect circle in
Yeah.
that.
yeah, and
And yeah,
yeah, and all of our main characters are now in the office room, right, and the clipboards
Yep.
somehow uh come in, and you're kind of trapped, and this is where you kind of hand over the vial of the stuff to Solomon, and that's where the
Mm.
kids kind of find out that there's something going on, and uh And then the scene after that is when you go out into the festival, right? And then you
Mhm.
have the three separate options.
Yes. And
Yeah.
again, that's where like I think which is kind of ironic because it's kind of like the big final change like turning point, but the charms involved are malice, change, and junk. I'm like, what the heck kind of charms is what? So like of all of that? Turns out change is the most obvious one. It's literally a coin, right? Like the
Hmm.
unlucky
Mhm.
penny that belonged to Beck. Malice was the malice liquor, right? A hardened
Yep.
alcohol for a hardened man or adult or whatever.
Yeah.
Junk. What was junk?
Junk was cigar ash
Yeah.
Cigar
that
ash.
was sitting in the ashtray.
And man, did they have some really funny, unexpected outcomes. I'll just say the ash one real quick because that's what I did first. I'm like, yeah, let's put junk in there. Right? Is that the one where it just
Yep.
Yeah.
poofed into
He no,
confetti?
he didn't prove
Yeah.
that
Oh,
one. He turned into ash and he
oh.
dissipated.
Oh, that's
Like
the one where the author's like, well, if you're happy with this ending, we can be happy. Which one's the one where he exploded into confetti?
that was malice.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Hmm.
That one was really funny. I was like, "Oh my gosh, he's gonna explode!" And then it was just confetti, and I just started laughing. I'm like, "Of course, that's funny."
Hmm. Yeah, but the real ending was changed, and it instead of turning Sharper into an adult, it actually reversed Sharper into an infant form.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so like they, the son and the daughter of Valentine actually take the baby to take care of it because that's
Hmm.
what you're supposed to do is take care of people, which is like the moral of this kind of turning point, right? Is uh,
Yeah.
take care of each other, and that was what
Mhm.
the family or the business was built on in the first place. Which is a nice little turnaround.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
uh, so that was the last turning point, and then we get the epilogue, right? Is this where
Yep.
we get the epilogue?
Mm.
This is
Mhm.
where we get the epilogue.
Yeah, and
This.
go ahead, Pat.
Oh yeah. So this takes place. I thought it was the next summer, but I feel like I don't know. I
Yeah,
feel
it
like
was
it
the
was
next summer because
earlier.
they were talking
Mhm.
about going to what seventh grade or middle school or something.
Yeah. So this is the next summer. The Beacon Pines is adapting to the change. Perennial Harvest is no longer around, and so they come up with another name for a new company that Beck's parents run now, which is to try and strengthen crops, but not like in the using the source, which was that special ice slash deager
Hmm.
slash ager component. So that's kind of the whole town, and they're all um, just kind of just dealing with the side effects of what everything happened. We find out that the kids are all at the treehouse again, and they're you have Iggy and his friend. I keep forgetting her name.
It starts with a T, but I don't remember. She wasn't like a
Tish.
big part of
Thank
the
you.
story. She
It
was
was like
just
Tish or Tish.
Tish.
Ish.
Tish. Yeah.
Yeah, Tish the Rhino, and so they're helping make the treehouse better. One because it's too many people now, and two, they're new friends.
Yeah.
And you can actually go and speak to everyone in the town if you wanted to just kind of get a conclusion of the story.
Yeah.
Like you can run into the heiress and you find out that um, Sharper reverted himself so far back that he has no memory of any, or his mind was not capable of retaining the memories of his world domination.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
So it
hopefully
it
he
would give
won't
him a
be raised evil. And
Mhm.
actually, Gus, he's like so happy now because he's not really in charge of really necessarily leading anything. He's just following instruction and putting an honest day's work, and never seen him happier.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. And then at the end, one of the mothers gives a special tree to Luca because one of the issues Luca had when he found out that the town was moved was that the special tree where his dad was buried was no longer there, and that tree meant something.
Right.
So the
Because
fact that it was
when they
yeah,
moved the town, like there was a scene kind of in the middle where he went to go visit his dad when he found out he was in the real Beacon Pines, and he had this kind of like you know revelation that he wasn't really visiting his dad,
Hmm.
which was really sad.
Hmm.
Yeah, but his dad's favorite tree now was in the new pines.
Hmm.
So uh, they genetically engineered this tree so that it would be able to survive the harsh, cold climate of the older beacon pines, which now was starting to warm up. But they had the tree there so they could plant it,
Yeah,
which kind of was the conclusion of the story.
yeah.
And
uh
then we got the book cover to end, and then you
Yeah.
push the button and the candle blows out.
mhm. Which was that was a
Very
nice little touch.
satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um
Hmm.
yeah. I really liked this game. I it was a game that I would have never touched if we didn't pick it for book club, and I'm really glad that we did. And it's kind of opened my eyes to other games too now. Like, I mean, I've always been open about not being like the indie games person, and it really takes a lot for an indie game to grab me. And um I don't know, I guess you just no pun intended, but you can't really judge a book by its cover,
Yeah.
right? um
Hmm.
so uh yeah, do we want to hit on anything else um before we kind of discuss what's next with book club?
Sure. Just kind of a couple things to hit upon. The phone booth parts of the stories was kind of wacky. You
Oh, we didn't hit
discover
the yeah.
that it's like a secret path, and they're like these tubes that take people to and from places. The creepy pharmacist ended up being kind of creepy. So basically, he's the pharmacist. Luca's father was a doctor. Both were presented an opportunity to have a lucrative career working for Sharper Valentine. Luca's father was more of the ethical person and just said no, whereas the pharmacist, he's just like, well, I'll say yes to him. But the father's like, if you say to Sharper Valentine once, you can never say no to him again. So he's almost
Hmm.
kind of like begrudgingly following Valentine's orders because he doesn't really have much of a choice.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. I thought the hidden pathway was a really cool touch. I would have liked to have so at the Beacon Pine sign, I would have really liked to go south.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I want to see what's out. I want to see what's outside. I want to go.
Yeah, it's a massive labyrinth.
Yeah. So I want to know. I wonder if that's oh maybe that's a sequel. I don't know.
DLC? No, I'm just kidding.
To be honest though, I'm really looking forward to their next game. I don't know how well this sold. I'm sure they got a pretty big check from Microsoft to put this on Game Pass. Most indies sell well on Switch. I'm assuming this sold
I know
decent enough.
yeah, it had decent receptions and the reviews were good for this game. So
Yeah, I'm looking forward to their next game. I Part of me wants this universe to continue and the boys find some sort of new mystery to solve. To be honest, um,
Hmm.
I'm,
Yeah, I will say this is a very well-rounded choose your adventure story because not that I'm not very picky with games. A lot of times I'm kind of like I don't know, I try to say the nicest things about it, but I think they've nailed it because the multiple endings are very different. Sometimes it's a little irritating when oh, you can your choices can impact the outcome, but the choices and like the outcome differences are very minute and barely mean anything.
mhm,
Here, it's vastly different,
mhm.
still cleverly interwoven. The fact how they paced it, like pacing. Sorry, story pacing. It's getting late. I think that's what made it stand out from other games that have a ooh, but your decisions impact the story. Like,
Yeah, yeah. This definitely it definitely did a lot better job than most of these do. I mean, I Telltale would be like the closest thing I would say that changes your endings, but even some of them are like, oh well, this guy's missing an arm instead of having an arm, like not that kind of stuff. So any final thoughts, Pat?
no, I was pleasantly, I expected good things from this game because of the reviews I've heard, and it, you know, I was thinking it was supposed to be a little more scarier than it was.
Hmm.
It turned out it wasn't, but I
Hmm.
still very much enjoyed the story, and it definitely had those, nice emotional moments that I look forward to in these type of indie games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My final thought is this is going to surprise a lot of people. I think if you just try it, highly recommend it. If you haven't played it and you got this far in the spoiler cast, well, we kind of spoiled it for you, but I think this game strongest attribute was the story and kind of like at the mystery unraveled it. Like there was a lot of surprises and a lot of twists that you don't see coming sometimes. So
Yeah.
definitely didn't see Gran actually being his mom. Uh,
Mhm.
so I thought his dad was going to come back at some point, and he wasn't really dead. He was just stuck in this alternate dimension, which is what I thought those black screens were. Was
Oh,
like
right.
Mhm.
an alternate dimension, like almost like a dream world. I mean, a dream world where he could talk to his dad, and dad was trying to escape or something, but that didn't end up happening. So. Uh, all right, so I guess that's it for Beacon Pines. Here's what's happening over the course of the next 3 months for Video Game Book Club. Uh, so if you're listening on Patreon, we are going to do an interstitial book club of Separate Ways for Resident Evil 4. It's the DLC that just came out today, well, Friday. Uh,
Mhm.
that's September 22nd. You can play it. If you're uh, listening on free feeds, you can go. You can already watch this as well. We're gonna put it out for free for everybody, just to have. October is the month of spooky stuff, so
Yeah.
uh, that's what we're gonna do
Spooky.
there.
Spoopy
Mhm.
games.
Yeah, November we're gonna do Alan Wake 2.
Oh, we forgot one more October game.
Oh right, the October Patreon game is Oxenfree 2, another indie game that
Mhm.
a lot of people really like, especially the first one. And then November we're gonna do Oxenfree or Alan Wake
Dude,
2. Sorry. Uh it's late, guys. I'm sorry. I'm
Action
tired.
Free 2 Part 2.
Yeah.
No.
We're gonna do Alan Wake 2 for November, and then we're gonna do Spider-Man 2 for December. I also had an idea for January, Pat, that I think you might like.
Hmm. Final
Uh
Fantasy 7 Remake Part 1.
no. Uh yeah, Yakuza Like a Dragon. Because
Ooh.
Infinite Wealth come out in January?
It does, but it comes out at the end of January.
Yeah, but we can play Like a Dragon before that to get people prepped for Infinite Wealth.
Would you like to maybe do the Gaiden one?
Uh, we could, we could,
Gaiden is
we could,
probably yeah.
we could. I mean, we could talk about it at some
We'll
point.
talk about it for
Yeah.
sure. Yes.
So that's what's happening with book club. We are going to start, doing schedules further out and trying to see what games are coming, and maybe do, like, if it's a shorter game, do that for the month, or if it has a prequel, like Spider-Man. Like, we're going to do Spider-Man 2 obviously, but I'm going to play Spider-Man 1 because I never finished it. And maybe we'll do a prequel, maybe we'll do indie games. We're going to try to have a fresh rotation go out. And
You can guarantee though in March we're doing Final Fantasy Remake 2. Rebirth.
I would have to play the first one. I would have to play the original.
Yeah.
So
The original and the first one.
yeah, I played about 3
And
hours.
Dirge of Cerberus and watch
No, I'm
Advent
not doing any of that.
Children.
Corey,
And
don't feel bad. I've actually never in my life played Final
you can't
Fantasy
forget
VII.
about Before Crisis either.
Here's
That's
the
Oh.
gonna be
thing.
huge.
Here's the thing about Final Fantasy VII. I played 9, 10, and 8 before I played 7. So like the impact wasn't there for me. And then I played the whole opening scene with the train, and like a little bit after that I'm like, I don't want to play this anymore. Maybe I was Final Fantasied out because I played them all in a row. Maybe the newer games are just better quality, and
They
then
are
you go back.
they're amazing.
Oh man,
And the
Final
more I
Fantasy.
hear about Rebirth, the more typed up I am. You can pet the baby chocobos in Rebirth.
Neat.
Isn't it? And then they also they also showed a scene where people are riding the chocobos Red 13 is riding a chocobo.
That doesn't make sense.
I know, it's like there's the whole discussion, like how would Red 13 like ride a chocobo? Like, would he be behind someone? Would he be next to the chocobo? No, he's sitting on the chocobo like a human.
That doesn't make sense.
Like his paws are like up here, and he's like,
yeah, this is
he's just sitting awkward. It's kind of funny.
Some Robin Hood furry shit going
Yeah,
on.
Barrett's looking at him, and Red's like, "What?"
All right, we're gonna wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. Beacon Pines is available on Xbox Game Pass, on PC, and on Nintendo Switch. I'm shocked that this isn't on PlayStation yet. Go check it out. It's great. Thanks for following along. And Stephanie, Pat, thank you for your time tonight as always. And we'll see you for Separate Ways and or Oxenfree 2.
Every time I hear Separate Ways, I just think of Journey.
Maybe the song is the opening song. Wouldn't that be awesome? If the opening cutscene is just Ada like kicking some ass and playing that song in the background.
You know what? You are partially true with the opening cutscene there, but the song is not in the background.
Speaking of background, we're leaving.
Bye!
Thank you so much for watching and or listening. Until next time, we love you. Goodbye.
Ciao.
Bye.
If you want to be a Patreon producer, head on over to patreon.com/BossRushMedia, and find out which tier is right for you. Our Patreon producers at the $5 tier or higher for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Dierig, Francisco Santillan, and Rebecca Jewell. Thank you for your continued support.